So this is a larger format essay, but I just wanted to highlight some of the Gospel of Thomas material here. And I will continue to make this case piece by piece, but this one's interesting. So I've talked about the koan of koans. We've got that idea of the Zen koan in Japan sounding like a homophone for koan, a Hebrew word for teacher. So we've got the Coen brothers of Big Lebowski fame and other wonderful films are the Teacher brothers.
But sometimes there's a man. Sometimes there's a man. Wow. Lost my train of thought here. But, hell. I done introduced him enough.
Interesting.
What does that mean? I have no clue. And that's really honest.
So the koan of Zen koans and the do Zen dozen Easter eggs. The Gospel of Thomas is much like a collection of Zen koans. Jesus is a teacher, among other things. In Hebrew, the word for teacher is koan, a homophone for cone. Jesus was a koan of cones, traveling through light cones with his do Zen disciples. See how that spells out there? This is not a series of coincidences. It's part of an unveiling. That's for this age we live in.
A couple years ago, I had 60 at bats. I was hitting 170, and everyone was ready to kill me too. What happened?
MVP.
Laser show.
In the Gospel of Thomas, Logia number 33, Jesus says, "For no one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket, nor does one put it in a hidden place. Rather, one puts it on a stand, so that all who come and go will see the light." So for all who come and go, they can see the light. Reminds me of the East and West Coast. You can watch the sun rise over the Atlantic or set over the Pacific. That's Logia 33 from the Gospel of Thomas, but we've pointed out how that Greek name Toma means twin, so the actual title inside of that papyri in Coptic was that it is the gospel that Judas Toma the twin wrote down. So Judas the twin, he's a double twin according to that. It's interesting. And in Luke 11:33, we hear, "No one after lighting a lamp puts it in the cellar or under a basket, but on a stand, so that those who enter may see the light." It's basically the same thing, except it says come and go, can see the light, in Logia 33 in Thomas. Now, take a look at Luke 11 as a pictographic icon. The 11 is just two ones. They're twins. And then we have a 33, which is also a duplicate number, or twin threes. I see here the Toma, or the twin, embedded right in the 11 of Luke. So Luke, the twin, 33. So we have yet another paraphrase from the Gospel of Thomas and a reference to the Logia number. There we have that Statue of Liberty in bronze in France. 7 spikes on the horn. She's holding her torch where people can see it when they come and go. If they go back to Europe, if they're going somewhere else, live in the dream, then they may not. So it depends. Thomas the twin references the coming and the going, and Luke 11:33 just references the light being on the stand for those who are coming. So I think of America as kind of like a trap. It's a reference to the Luke. You see the light when you come, not when you leave. But there's also a little bit of an anagram there, or a different way of looking at it. I'm getting ahead of myself here, but there's some atomic and mote symbolism in Toma, the name Thomas, the twin. Toma, T-O-M-A, is an anagram for mote, which could be like an island surrounded by water, or an atom surrounded by a mote of covalent bond electron activity. So there we have that Christ as the Salvator Atom figure who is, let's say, in and outside of time and space. So in 11:33, in Luke 11:33, one doesn't see the flame when leaving, only coming. It reminds me of St. Paul's advice to not let the sun set on your anger. That's towards the end of Ephesians. So we're not looking back at the twin flame in anger. So I kind of see this as advice to not look back at your old flame in anger. Don't hold resentments. Something else in there too about the divine personal sovereignty in that spark. You kind of really can't really hold on to resentments too much if you're aware of what that really means. You do have to get over some stuff. I'm in the process of learning that the hard way myself. I've got some serious hurt feelings, but I understand that looking back in anger or holding resentments is like a toxic flame that'll burn you up from the inside. So we have some interesting teachings embedded here. And I'm also thinking of the waters above and the firmament. So there's a breaking of the veil, there's the piercing of Adam, there's the piercing of Christ, there's the vinegar with the mother coming down. Christ has that sponge lifted up, so they kind of lifted up the mother, the vinegar, the bitterness. There's some interesting symbolism there, the different sayings of Christ on the crucifix. And then the tearing of the temple veil. And then the thunder, lightning, and the rising of the dead, all of that is symbolism that maps onto some of that carbon biochemistry and the radioactive exchanging of ions of Zion in that covalent bond. And we have the round earth with the four corners mapping onto those four outside covalent bonds. And on the inner circle of two covalent electrons, or I'm sorry, two electrons, the non-covalent electrons that are stuck inside the inner circle, kind of reminds me of the sun and the moon, and also this idea of a pair of twins. Speaking of twins, the Quran has 114 surahs, and the word for Islam is a pictographic icon of a chesty woman in a witch's hat with a pipe. And another pattern from Luke 11:33 in the Gospel of Thomas, Logia 33. Thomas, Toma, is the twin. And Logia 33, we see twin threes. In the corresponding scripture of Luke 11:33, we see encoded the source of the teaching, the twin 33, the 11:33. So think of 11 as Roman numeral for 2. We got two 33s. And that's kind of interesting. I'll get back to that, but two 33s is like splitting the King James Bible evenly in half. You got 33 and 33. That would be like the Torah and Yeshua or Joshua, the first 6 books. And then the 27 of the Old Testament would make 33. And then you've got Judges going up to Malachi, making the other 33. Anyway, I'll get into that in a separate video. The Masonic maths and the nature of the number 33 and the Master Mason number are, it's pretty dense stuff, but I'm just going to stick with the Gospel of Thomas for now. Also with the Luke 11:33, I'm thinking of 11 plus 33 is 44, another twin number, and it's the number of times that the word love appears in the Gospel of John. And when it's time to go, don't look back in anger, only love. So it's good advice. A number of traditions see preparation for death as having a lot to do with the condition when you leave. So if you go out the way you came in, kicking and screaming, I'm not sure if that's going to bode well for the situation after that. Also, I've talked about 33 being 33s. So the Masonic Master Mason number of 33 degrees is 33s. 33 degrees. 30 sets of 3 degrees, little increments that lead you up to L. So that's the stairway to heaven, or the spiral staircase to Elohim, and it's the right angle, or you got to look at it from the right angle. And so that's the 33s. The 33s is 90, and so twin 33s would be twin 90s. That's 180. That's the dome over your head. That's a tough nuit or nut to to crack, isn't it?
When we take a look at that story in Genesis of the piercing of the side of Adam, and then when we look at the ecosystem as a God body, the breaking of the rib and the piercing of Christ's side at the crucifixion is the same thing as passing through the nut or breaking the nut, the Egyptian firmament goddess, in order to come into the world. And that's described in Genesis 6, among other stories.
33 and 33 is 66, and 66 is 360, so that's full circle. And the hemisphere dome over your head. And the twin 33s, the twin right angles, 180. And 180 is, well, 1 infinity equals 0. That's another piece of that big on 33 essay I'll get into. We'll go into the harrowing of hell and how that maps onto H2O and water, and I'll talk more about the Gospel of Thomas. Some of these illustrations and ideas will be going into a book I'm working on about illuminating the Gospel of Thomas. Since the theologians over at Yale and Cambridge can't seem to figure it out, I'm gonna help them out. I mean, you even draw pretty pictures too to illustrate what I'm talking about, because I haven't been out here barking at the moon for 8 years for no freaking reason. The unified code theory is real, and this systematic, kind of like pictographic language and series of like, I don't know, esoteric double entendres, they add up to something. It's not just a giant series of coincidences. This Gospel of Thomas has some esoteric scientific information embedded in it, and it's pretty obvious that it's got something to do with the Q document, the sayings gospel, or the source document. So we'll get into that some more when I continue to break down the Masonic 33 mathematics and how that relates to esoteric scripture. And remember, Christ was a builder or a tectone, and it's archon and tectone where we get the word architect. An architect is a archon and a tectone. So if Christ was an archon and Christ was a tectone, Christ was an architect. And he raised the widow's son from Nain, from the dead, which is a symbolic miracle that the Master Masons love to make a reference to. But they seem to have more of a reverence for the physical world and the human than for the gods. And so they look up to John the Baptist over Jesus. So Jesus was maybe a master builder, but was not in their fraternity. They don't seem to care for him that much. That's maybe one of their secrets in their society, though. I don't think they're as open about it, but their iconography is pagan, Islamic, antichrist, and pro-John the Baptist. I don't see anything in the scripture that puts John over Jesus or would make John an anti-Jesus book. It is separated from the synoptics, but maybe that's just because they're jealous. I don't know. Anyway, so that's a continuation of some of that source document. Yeah, the Gospel of Thomas and the Q document are likely one and the same. And I'm showing you that there's repeatedly symbolic, there's phraseology and numbers embedded in the Gospels, which make a reference to the Gospel of Thomas, which came about earlier. And St. Paul later taught some students that taught the Valentinians. And this is where the early Christian teaching was headed until the Romans took over. And now you got the Eastern Orthodox and the Catholics and the Protestants all engaged in a kind of kayfabe while they distract the referee so he doesn't see the job they're doing on the Gnostics, who laid down the foundation of Christianity with esotericist Jews coming out of the Essenes and some other curious traditions. So there you go. The Q document, back when
all men and women created by go, you know the thing.
Back when Jesus was just on the radio. All right. Thanks for coming out. Good night. God bless.
This 8-year-old non-sponsored project is the work of one person. That's me. I'm Jason. If you go over to patreon.com/Bickford and support my channel for as little as under $5 a month, you can get access to exclusive content and 2 years worth of consolidated links, downloadable goodies in the archive. So there is now a handy archive at the top of the Patreon page, and we're uploading high-def 4K video over there now. We as in the proverbial we of the co-creative faculty, because none of us are truly alone. But I do need your help out here in staying independent. I'm a targeted individual who's marginalized and shadow banned.